everyone, and welcome back to the Shock Absorber podcast. My name is Joel, and joining me on the lounges today, Tim. Welcome.
Thanks, Joel. Sounding very, very cruisy, very jazz lounge.
On the chaise lounge.
It's going to go for a relaxed vibe today, are we?
I feel relaxed. Do you feel relaxed?
No, but that's okay.
Oh, what would relax you?
Nice walk on the beach, sunset.
That's hard to do a podcast. It's a bit windy. Affect the audio quality.
We tried doing it in a cow field.
Oh, we have done it in a field of cows.
Yeah.
Yes. But that's you in one spot. You're not walking along.
That's true.
And more wind comes off the waves, the ocean, than in a cow paddock.
Maybe we need like those walking on the beach, but with the cones of silence from Maxwell Smart.
Oh, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah. Stop the wind.
And then we also need electricity, Tim. You're making this very complicated. You know those people.
You just asked me how I'd feel relaxed.
You know those beach carts people carry along? Because when we drove down, we recorded a podcast when we drove down to Week Away.
Yes.
And we used a camping battery
to
power everything,
which
which was great. It's the best version we've ever done. Maybe we could do that, but you need it in the cart, in the beach cart, carrying along behind you.
Yep.
As you were in those cones of silence.
Okay. How's the camera working? We're getting
just a cameraman.
Cameraman, yeah.
That's what you need.
Okay.
Two cameramans
walking along.
I like it. I like podcasts like that. They're pretty good.
Yeah. There you go. Next week, coming to you from Allura.
That's a beach in our area, if
you
was wondering. What are we doing here today, Tim? We're recording a podcast.
Well, what are we doing?
Well,
that is a deep philosophical question.
We've got a few things to talk about.
Yeah.
Wes Huff was on Diary of a CEO podcast.
Yeah.
We've got an article from After Babel.
Yes.
And then we're going to talk about you and I preaching on the same
passage.
Yes. Sorry, I couldn't think of
in
the
our
word.
John series.
In our John Revealing Jesus series. So, what would you like to touch on first?
Oh, so many good options. Let's. I reckon we should take them in that order.
Okay, let's do it in order. Okay, so I haven't watched this episode of Wes Huff.
Yep.
I enjoy Wes. I think he does a great job of communicating the gospel.
Yeah.
At least in a friendly and caring way, I think I would say.
Mm.
And he's on Diary of a CEO, which is one of the biggest podcasts in the world, hosted by Stephen Bartlett. I remember listening to Stephen's podcast when it was just an audio podcast. It was called Diary of a CEO.
Okay.
But he is an entrepreneur. He owns I think he started with an agency, a social media agency, and then has gone into other areas as his business has grown.
Mm.
But he does have one of the biggest podcasts in the world. Everyone who is somebody and wants to go on a podcast goes on his podcast now.
I haven't got my invite yet. I'm just waiting. I'm sure it's any day now.
I'm glad to see that you think you're someone.
Yeah.
But yes, Wes was on this podcast. The thumbnail I was just looking at, it says the truth about Christianity, and the title is #1 Christianity expert.
Yeah. I'll have to change that when I go on. But yeah.
And it says the truth about Christianity, the case for Jesus, in brackets, historians' proof.
There's a lot going on in that. I think they're trying a bit too hard with their optimization.
Or maybe they just know exactly what
maybe they know exactly. Maybe I should take the guy who has 80,000 subscribers. No,
he's got
2 million views.
2 million views, and I think he's got probably over 1 million subscribers on it.
Yeah.
Wes, what did he say?
What I really like is interviews where the interviewer is genuinely curious and wants to have a really good conversation and wants to learn something new.
Mm.
And I think Stephen Bartlett generally does a good job of being genuinely curious. He's usually I don't listen to every episode, but I sort of tap in and out depending on the topic or if the name is someone I'm familiar with. And so this one, caught my eye, having heard Wes Huff. I think I first came across him when he was on Joe Rogan's podcast, which was the only Joe Rogan podcast I've ever listened to.
Wow, there you go.
But it was, I think it was a combination. Steve Bartlett is usually very well researched. He's done a lot of work, and I'm sure he's got a whole team around him doing all of that. Yeah. So well researched with a deep curiosity. He brought there's a vulnerability he brings, which I think is also part of his persona, which, there's a performative self there, which is interesting. Just part of his brand, I suppose, at the moment is to be vulnerable in a lot of areas. Combine that with Wes Huff, who, as you said, is very astute, very clear, very affable. He's open to having these friendly, bantery type conversations. He's clear in his points, but he's not there to own the libs or to trash talk people to win an argument. For me, I think the reason I like videos like this is because there's a certain tone to it which captures a whole lot of things that are of interest to me. That curiosity, affable tone, clarity, curiosity, all of that combined, I think, made it for me quite a good episode. And so Stephen Bartlett, he's talking about, he asks, I've grew up in a Christian home, probably got influenced by the new atheist movement, have started to see that that's a bit empty and vacuous, and so started exploring more. And so he was quite open with that at the start, sharing where he's currently is in the journey. And so brought some of the really common questions to Wes Huff about Christianity, about religion, brought some of his own personal type questions there. It was a great listen.
The intro, when you just watch the intro, Stephen Bartlett says, "Am I going to hell?" And then they cut it and Wes goes, "Yes." And then the whole scene bursts into flames.
Right, yes. And it's funny because it gets to that point in the actual interview and Wes Huff laughs and goes, "This is the bit you're going to clip out, isn't it?"
Yeah.
And I think that's the other thing about Wes Huff is he knows how to play the social media game as well. So he knows what he's doing in this world of social media and the way that it works. So he's made a name for himself in this space, which works as well. And kind of like Billy Graham in his day, I think a large part of Wes Huff's the appeal to him is he's really attractive. And people will say the same about.
He's a good-looking guy, you mean?
He is a good-looking guy. People said the same about Billy Graham. Yes, he was articulate and charismatic, but he was also good-looking, and that's not nothing to notice that he is someone who in a screen-based world can actually be fully there in all the things that a screen-based world values. So yeah,
he's also a big chungus. He obviously can push a fair bit of weight. At the gym.
yeah.
The only other thing I thought was that is also maybe his appeal is that the fact that he's very articulate, yes, but he is historically, he's an expert, in the historicity of the Bible, which one of the questions people always say, why should I trust the Bible? Like, it's a book written however many hundreds, thousands of years ago. Why should I trust that actual text? And then he's able to go, well, here's why. Yeah,
so he's got a lot of credibility in his field, which is historical studies and particularly papyrus. And so, if you really want to argue on the level of can we trust the text that we've got, this has been his whole world from an academic point of view is to go, we can trust this and bring the receipts, as they say.
I don't know if you've used that in the right context.
No, it's all right. I'm a boomer. I'm allowed to
bring the receipts.
Got the receipts?
Yeah,
it's got the receipts.
Yeah, but it's usually in the back. Like, I've got receipts, and I'm coming back with them after you haters came after me. Australian cricket team's doing that a lot at the moment.
Are they?
Yeah,
right.
It's just strange, but probably unnecessary. So let's move on to the next thing. Check out that episode if you haven't. I think I haven't, like I said, I haven't seen it yet, but I think I would actually really enjoy that because I think you're right. Stephen Bartlett is quite curious and he does do some good episodes.
Yeah.
He's Robert Greene. Remember I've spoken about Robert Greene before. He's been on there twice, for example. There's been some other good episodes. So,
and I think we've all talked before about this. There's a cultural moment where there is a lot of growing curiosity about Jesus and about religion.
Yeah.
So there's at least anecdotally, there's a lot of people talking about a Gen Z revival that's happening at the moment. There's other people who are saying, I don't know if I can see it in the data. And so I think that's significant to look at both sides of this. But there seems to be a lot of chatter amongst the Gen Z, which is the heavily online generation, who are growing curious about these things. So I think one of the reasons that Wes Huff and others have grown in popularity is because there are a lot of people who are searching for deep meaning. And after a conversation that I had with a friend at church, and she was talking about her young adult son and where he's at, and I, after listening to this, I flicked it onto her and I said, hey, this might be something that your son might be interested in because he's the right age group and asking the same kind of questions that are being addressed here. So I think for those of us, most of us who are listening are church leaders involved in maybe youth ministry or church planning. You might be seeing some of these young people coming to church and asking these kinds of questions. I think this is a great example of a skeptic and a Christian having a really positive conversation. And whether you forward this on to people or you listen to it and notice, take some time reflecting on something like this and say, okay, what is Wes Huff doing in the way that he can both articulate truth in a winsome and helpful way that shows the skeptical person that they are for them, that they're enjoying them, that this is a really positive conversation, and then using that to, articulate well the gospel, which he does really clearly. So, I think that there is things that we can. I mean, it makes a great podcast to listen to and be affirmed yourself. But if you are a church minister, a church leader, a Christian leader who's listening to this, I think there are definitely things that we can learn about the style, the manner, and the content that he brings, and the manner in which he communicates, which I think tick a lot of boxes for the generation who is particularly curious about Christian things at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So we'll move on to our next thing though. After Babel, there's a Substack which is started by Jonathan Haidt. If you haven't heard about it before, we talk about Jonathan Haidt quite a bit.
He's been quite influential.
Prolific.
Oh, that's
well, he's getting. I saw him. He's recently on Bill Maher.
Right. Yeah.
Talking about obviously the impact of social media and mobile phones, especially on younger children.
Yes.
But you've got an article here that what was it? What's the title? Sorry, it's
30 facts about childhood today that will terrify you.
Wow.
I know. I'm feeling terrified right now.
Are you? What is the number one reason you're terrified? He's got 30 there.
He's got 30, yeah. Look, there's a lot of here that summarise, and this is the article itself. If you open it up, you click on the link below, they're just 30 sentences, and nearly all of them are hyperlinked to the further article. So you could really spend a lot of time digging deep into all of these things and seeing the research that's behind these. Some of them are quite academic research papers. Some of them are reporting on other papers. So you can kind of follow the train a number of these. None of them are particularly new, I suppose. This is the world that we're curious about. We're curious about young people. We're curious about technology and culture. And so I think for those who find Shock Absorber helpful, if you're listening along, this will probably be things you've come across in the past. So, but I think it's a really nice summary, and he's brought together a lot of really interesting points. So things like the average child now plays outside for only 4 to 7 minutes per day. The time youngsters spend with friends have fallen in half. They're the first two. It was interesting here, children entering school with autism-like symptoms. Both of us have primary school teaching wives, and so these are the kind of things that will come up in our homes as we debrief the day with our wives, that we see with sort of education adjacent in our family conversations. Things about obesity, things about abilities or inabilities that children have. But one of the ones, and you notice this, which I thought was good because it kind of has a church edge to it, is right towards the bottom, reason 27 that we should be terrified. An increasing number of children have no siblings or cousins. Youngsters increasingly operate as loners without the benefit of family ties and support. And I think your observation was really good that, I mean, a lot of these, being part of a healthy church community, or any community, a third place community, any incarnate third place community will help with a lot of these, the deformations that are happening here. But a Christian third place community, like we talk about all the time, is going to help, and particularly here that it is true that a number of our children in our communities have no siblings and no cousins, but a church can be a place where they can find other children to play with. And so there'll be, I mean, if they're Christians, Christian brothers and sisters of that age and of all generations who can actually form this community that need. We are, designed for community. We've talked about that a lot before. And so it's no surprise when we see how the Bible talks about us being formed for each other, formed for relationship, formed for community, that those who are growing up without community are being impacted negatively. And so churches can be places of positive community, and therefore, this is one place where even if they have no siblings or cousins, they can actually find, a multitude of peers and older and younger in which to grow up into. So that's what I was thinking. You were the one who sort of noticed this one first before I scrolled down to it. What did you like about this one?
I was just fascinated to understand why that's the case. And unfortunately, it's on The Atlantic, which I don't have an account for, so it actually hides the article. And it's actually from 2023. But apparently it's related to also the ageing population, and that not as many people have aunts and uncles, people don't have as many aunts and uncles, so therefore they don't have as many cousins either. And it's funny, in this Atlantic article it says that cousins occupy a weird place in a family, that some you could be incredibly close to, but others you barely ever see and see them as strangers. Some cousins live on the same block and some live on the opposite side of the world, but it says that basically cousins end up as this, what is the right word? Kind of like a family adjacent. They're not friends, are they? But they're not full family either. Like they are extended family, but they're not immediate family.
Yep.
So it occupies this interesting place between, they're not your friends from school, for example, but you don't see them every day in the home either. But you see them regularly and they kind of understand you because you've kind of got the same blood to a certain degree. But then, and I think that's where the link is with church, is that obviously unified by the body of Christ.
Yeah.
But so many different backgrounds. But there's this one unifying thing. So with cousins, the unifying thing is obviously the family linkage. However, with the family of Christ, that's our linkage. And therefore, we get to share in the things that, the benefits that come out of that by sharing each other's lives. So I think that was quite I suppose I was thinking about, that's similar to like just my family. I used to be closer to my cousins when I was younger. Now I'm not anymore, and I'm observing my children who have, I think, let me check, 5 cousins, and their relationship with them is that when they arrive, like my sister's daughter, my niece, is so excited to see them. And so, they're a bit older than me. Look, and I'm going to get to play with them. Where are they? Where's Remy? Where's this? Where's that? But then also my youngest daughter with my wife's sister's daughter, they're 7 months apart. So they love each other. And they spend every Tuesday of last year together, for example. And so they grow a real strong bond in terms of, like, as if they were friends. They're best friends to a certain degree. So it's, I don't know, do you have many cousins? Is that the same thing that you observe?
So I've got 6 cousins. And so now we're all of an age where, there's, I always lose track of what the right relationship is, but a number of us have kids who are now second cousins or first cousins once removed or whatever it is.
I don't know how that works.
Yeah. We only see each other once a year. And so it is a familiar stranger type relationship, as in these these 6 cousins of mine plus the 3 of us, so the 9 of us who are the children of the same grandparents, we have seen each other every year for me, 40-something years. And so there is a high familiarity there. But it's only once a year. And so there is also a strangeness to it as well.
Yeah.
And my kids kind of feel the same. Like they know who these people are, but they don't feel close to them. It's hard to sometimes get along with their cousins, some who are the same age. My oldest son, he's the oldest of that generation by a number of years, and so he's always been a bit of an outsider, so he's never really had peers, whereas there's probably 3-4 girls around my daughter's age from different families, so they sort of can kind of bundle together and go off, particularly when they were younger. It's a bit harder now, they're teenagers.
Yeah. Is that because they're on their phones, Tim?
I mean, Zali's not.
My daughter is
my
not,
daughter
of
is
course.
not. I mean, it can be. Yeah, sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's just they don't really have a lot in common. And I think, young kids have that really naturally. Hey, I've got 2 legs. You've got 2 legs. Let's go run around.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's all it takes. And, for now, but once they enter into middle adolescence, it's not as easy to just, hey, we don't really know each other. We see each other last year. Let's go.
Missed you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go.
I think they just kind of need to work through that a bit, and they'll probably come out the other side like I am with my cousins that were now adults who are friends and strangers, but friends, in that sense.
Familiar strangers is a great term.
Right, okay, thank you. Calling that.
So they're strangers mainly because you don't spend enough time with them, but they're familiar because they're family.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's like, and we talk about how we think it's so important to spend time together with our church family every week and for a long extended period of time. It's almost like unfamiliar strangers.
Yeah.
Is that because we spend more time with them?
Well, and it's interesting how society has shaped the way we have expectations of who we'll be in relationship with. So, again, if you go back before the Industrial Revolution, when you're in villages of 100, 200, you kind of know everyone that's there, and someone may travel outside of that village or may even move villages, but majority of people born, lived, died in the same small area, geographic area. And if someone moves, it's like, okay, well, they've moved. I will never see them again. And so the Industrial Revolution obviously rearranges villages to cities, usually in the Western world. And now, of course, we've got cars. They expect that we can travel more and we can travel further distances quickly. So that extends the reach of people that we can incarnate face-to-face, be in relationship with. And then, of course, letters and email, you're able to writtenly correspond with people. But social media, sort of you expand and extrapolate out. So we feel like we know, in inverted commas, all of these people. But along with that comes the expectation that we would be in relationship with them. So if you have large social networks because of where you've lived, and particularly if you've moved, you might have known, 40 people in this city, but then you've moved jobs and now you know 40 people in that city. The expectation is you now have 80 people to keep up with. And then you might move again, or you might move to a different company and you get to know the 40 people in that company, and it's just assumed that, of course, you will keep track of 120 relationships and, balloon that out to churches, and you go to conferences, and it's not hard to sort of escalate the number of people that we feel like we have connection with, but we actually don't. But the technology available to us makes it feel as if we kind of should, whereas, pre-social media, pre-quick messaging technologies, it would have been okay. Like, it changes our expectations of how closely we can keep up with people because of the immediacy of the ability to keep up with people that quickly. So that's curious as well.
So we think we're more familiar sometimes with people than we actually are.
Or we feel that we should be.
Okay.
So if, my cousins live in another part of Sydney, so we're still in the same city, but Sydney's huge. So we're about an hour's drive away from each other. So if you go back before the car, that would have been not an hour, it would have been a week or, a day of horseback riding or what, so there wasn't an expectation that we would maintain a close relationship. But again, as technology changes and the distance between people shrinks because of the speed at which we can connect
and get there,
and then communicate, then it was, I think it changes our expectations of how we expect to know people. And this is where we create that idea of feeling lonely in a crowd, because we actually have hundreds of connections of people that we know, but we still sometimes struggle to connect with 1, 2 or 3 in meaningful ways. So to go back to Stu's comments a couple of weeks ago about the different circles of friendship, we actually have a large crowd, but some people really struggle even to have the 2 to 3, let alone the 12 of actual relationships, which can be strange. But one of the things we can do is at church, and this is where the church has become shock absorbers of relationship, is we can actually create third place communities that become our primary community and become a place of connection that meet all of these psychological, social, emotional, and often physical needs. Who would I go to if I needed help moving house? It actually probably wouldn't be my cousins. Not because they wouldn't jump in, because it would feel a bit strange to ask the people I see once a year to help move when there's people I see twice a week, 3 times a week, every single week, who are just relationally, emotionally, socially closer to me. And so the actual networks of support become the church, not the family, and certainly not this distant family. And I think that's okay.
Well, let's look at another terrifying fact. And this is the one that I think you actually highlighted to me, number 16.
Ooh.
Half of the children surveyed say that parents should be concerned about their screen time. They admit they would be worried if they were their parents.
Yeah.
Well, that's quite a damning indictment from the mouths of babes.
Yeah.
You could say. But I looked at the link, which is a report called The Coming of Age in a Fully Connected World. It's called The State of the Youth in 2025, which is a report from America, I believe. But they were saying that same thing, that 50% of the kids surveyed said they were very or somewhat concerned about their screen time if they were in their parents' shoes. And that's the extent, apparently, of what it kind of covers in that report. It's just an answer to a survey question. But also that the related findings that are close to it is that technology is the number one reason kids say they fight with their parents. And 62% of kids wish they could flip the script and take away their parents' phones, suggesting that the kids are very aware of a double standard.
Oh, yeah.
That's fascinating too, and I think. And then when devices are taken away, kids feel frustrated or annoyed, and only 56% they feel frustrated, annoyed, but only 16% find it helpful when it's taken away. So they notice their own usage, but they don't necessarily want any kind of restriction on it. I think that's fascinating, those kind of, what do we call that, details that they've put in there. What's your reaction to them, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, I wonder.
Can I have your phone before we do this?
Yeah, I don't actually have my phone on me. I think I left it in the staff house.
Staff house?
Oh, well, the
you can
cottage.
Rent a house, are you?
Yes, well, I was actually wondering. So yes, there's a child component here, and we can get to that in a second. But I wonder. At first, I was going to ask you, Joel, do you think your parents would be worried about your phone usage?
Now,
as an adult, or maybe, again, different relationships change over time. Would our spouses be worried about our screen time, or would your best friend or a mentor or a spiritual advisor be worried and concerned about your screen time? And do you think they have a right to be? I think that's a interesting thing. Like, it's easy for us to read these kind of statistics as, children these days. But I think, and this is another article that came out on After Babel this week called Your Marriage Has a Third, which was drawing on the impact that screen technology has to partnered relationships. And that was another exceptional article that brought up, just this disruptive effect that screens are having in marriage, partnered relationships.
That's an interesting question. I think maybe to a degree, somewhat. I'm reasonably happy with my use of my phone in the last couple of months.
Okay.
I think I charge my phone outside my room.
Yep.
I have a alarm clock, so I don't use my phone as the alarm. I think sometimes though I can be more vulnerable than other times to looking at my phone and just mindlessly scrolling.
Yep.
So when I'm tired or I need a break, and I know I've got these things I need to do, I'm like, I just want to sit down and have a break. I really have started to dislike that impulse to reach for my phone. I think that's a good thing overall, but I'm really starting to go, I just don't want to do that anymore. But sometimes I feel so tired. Like the other thing I would do would be grab my book, but I feel so tired that I usually start dozing off if I start reading my book. So I would say, it'd be interesting to ask my wife what she thinks. I would say it's not too bad. Sometimes I'm using it, maybe during the morning I'm listening to a podcast or something like that. But I think that's a different thing to scrolling on mine.
Well, it is interesting to see the screen, what counts as screen time and what doesn't.
On your phone?
Yeah, when you look at those screen time apps. So I've noticed that one of my exercise apps counts as screen time. Yeah. But I'm not watching it. I'm on a run. Yeah. And it's in my pocket.
Yep.
Tracking my activity.
Yep.
But sometimes that can add towards the screen time depending on which app is being used. So it might look like I had an hour's screen time before dawn, but actually no, I was out doing a run and doing some stretches. And so that those kind of things. Yes, look at those. But I do think that we do have to be careful of double standards about in that. But I do think it is concerning. I don't think there's many people who, when they actually think about it, are happy with their screen time, which is why there's so much commentary, which is why we've talked about it a lot on the podcast, is because it is a really significant cultural moment that we're wrestling with, and we're thinking about how do we live as disciples of Jesus with this culture. We are in a culture where we are addicted to our phones, where and as this is another Jonathan Haidt phrase, that it's a collective action problem. So you could go to a dumb phone. There's a lot of things that are really hard to do that the world now just assumes you can do. Like there are car parks where the ticketing option is the smartphone app, and that's it.
Yeah. Like
that's the only way. You just infrastructure is being built around the fact that you have to use your phone. To use we often use the Australia Post parcel lockers that are near my place so that we know that parcels are being securely locked away rather than being dropped outside our apartment door where sometimes they go missing. But again, how do you access those lockers? It's the smartphone app. So there are a whole lot of things that, prescription drugs, like a lot of the e-scripts, they get texted to you, which connects you to a QR code, which the pharmacist now scans. There are more complicated, more friction ways to do a lot of these things, but the culture just assumes that everyone will have a smartphone and everyone will use it. So we have this collective action problem where it's actually really hard to detangle ourselves away from the unhealthy habits when it's the same device which is doing both the incredibly helpful things like being able to book your parking and get your prescription drugs and access your parcel locker, with all of the really unhelpful things that are wasting our time and scrolling to death, and all of those kinds of things as well. So I think we do have to be aware of that. But to come back to this thing about the kids, yes, that the fact that kids are aware that parents should be concerned about their screen time, I think is also, in some ways, is a positive, that they are aware enough to know that they don't like who they are on this. But
they don't know how to escape it.
They don't know how to escape it. They need help. And this is what parents are for. It's a parent's job to scaffold for your kid the right amount of access that they have to these things. And there's lots of tips and tricks out there in the web to know how to do that. But you also pointed out they don't like to be punished. So they don't necessarily want it taken away. And so this is another dynamic, and particularly with adolescents, that you need to work out as a parent, is how to create scaffolds that will, at least in the long term, be seen as affirming. There's lots of things, lots of rules we make as parents that teenagers don't like in the moment. And sometimes you just got to go, okay, I'm the parent. Tough luck. You're not going to like this, but I'm the parent. Okay, let's go. So we talked about that a few weeks ago, that kind of right authority.
Yeah. I was going to say, do you think that one of the reasons that they find it so upsetting, there's a number of reasons in terms of the cognitive hijacking kind of thing and that phones do, but do you reckon one of the reasons they feel frustrated by like a phone being taken away as a consequence is like, you shouldn't have given me this in the first place. You shouldn't have allowed me to use it for so long. So there's almost like I think that plays into the double standard of like, you've taken my phone away, but there you are sitting on the lounge scrolling on yours.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen any data to support that, and it's possible.
We don't always have to act on accurate data, do we?
Oh, no. That's what we're here to hear. There's a waffle on.
That's 100% true.
There is, again, Cal Newport, another friend of the podcast, as in I talk about him all the time.
Yeah.
One of his suggestions is to say to your teenager, they don't have a phone. You have a phone that they're allowed to use. So it's your phone. You've paid for it. You're paying the plan, or you've bought the phone outright. And they're welcome to take it to soccer practice because the finish time is unknown. So, it's a good communication device, or, if they're catching public transport and the trains get shut down, and your son who's now travelling by public transport to school needs to be able to let you know, I got as far as this station, but now the trains have all stopped and I'm stuck. So having a device in order to do that is a helpful communication tool that we have. But one of Newport's ideas is the idea that it's still the parent's phone, it's not their phone. So you give them permission to use the phone at these particular times, and then when you get home, yep, great, it goes back in the family box of phones, and that can sometimes reduce that. It's my phone. I have the right to this. It's mine, which can sort of just maybe disrupt that a little bit.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. It's a good way of doing it. I just had a look at my screen time.
Right.
Do you want to take a guess on what my most used app has been this week?
YouTube.
Yes, 100%. 5 hours.
Okay.
However, in defence of myself, I would say, I reckon around 50% is me using that to listen to podcasts.
Sure.
So I'm not staring at the screen. I'll say the other 50% is me just probably watching some stuff. And the next one was X after that.
Right.
Fascinating. And then the next one, which is funny, is Proclaim, which is the app that we use like we use that for our slides at church and stuff. And so I was using that on my phone because as we said, I'm preaching this week, I'm working out my slides. But before we do get onto that, is there anything else that took your eye are you terrified by anything else by this article and After Babel?
Oh, look, I mean, these are concerning, and I think that they are doing real disruption to our kids. I don't want to be alarmist about these things, and like everything, when we look at theology, strategy, and practice, there is a theology of createdness and goodness in creation. We talked about cultural mandate before, and that is great to explore and create technologies. Technologies are neither inherently good or bad, and so there could be wonderful things that we can explore here, but there is also inherent fallenness, and therefore the way in which fallen humans can use technology, both in the creation, like there can be fallen motives in the creation of these technologies, and I think we see that in a lot of the design to addict and design to draw our attention away, and there is thought gone into how to make these as disruptive to the human psyche as possible for the gain of the company and shareholders and etc. So there can be fallenness there. There's also fallenness to us who, in the way that we choose to use apps or choose not to put safeguards on or whatever it might be, restrictions on our use of YouTube or Proclaim or whatever it might be. But also there are redemptive aspects as well. And so we can use these technologies to also bring the redemptive element of our humanity to play as well. And so I think we need to be careful. We need to be wise. We don't need to panic. Jesus is still king, even if TikTok exists. So, I don't need to be panicked or terrified, but we do need to be wise and careful.
I mean, you're talking about different tech companies. There's one about that Meta, who is the umbrella company for Facebook, newly unsealed court documents allege Meta knew for years about the serious risks to young users, including minors being contacted by adults, for example, and mental health harms and the spread of self-harm, but never told families. And it's apparently a massive lawsuit now against families, school districts and state attorneys general. And it targets a lot of tech companies, and the core allegation is that the companies relentlessly pursued growth at all costs while knowingly ignoring the damage being done to children's mental and physical health. Sounds a lot like the cigarette companies.
Absolutely.
They knew the dangers, and then
there's a lot of people drawing that connection.
A lot of people have drawn that connection in terms of social media and our phones, and it's been the new smoking.
Yeah.
What do you think, in your experience so far, how has the social media ban gone, do you think? Your children or teenagers are older. Is there any impact or across their friendship groups?
It's a good question. I haven't asked, actually. We already had that as a family standard.
Like no social media until 16 or?
Yeah, we were, I mean, we hadn't set a particular age, but we had said no
Okay.
up until a particular point. And because my son's the eldest, it wasn't where he was particularly, it's not where the temptation for him lies. It's more the gaming apps are the biggest draw card for him. And so, we have had to talk about that. For my daughter, it was hard because, yes, all of her friends were on Snapchat, and that was where a lot of the group conversations had, and that was hard for her to be excluded from that. And so sometimes she would get filled in on events and sometimes she wouldn't. So she missed out on invitations, she missed out on hangouts because they forgot to loop her in after the fact. Even though she had a phone, she didn't have Snapchat, and that's where things were happening. My guess would be that most of her friends have not deleted their accounts or had their accounts deleted, and that they're still using social media. But I actually don't know that for certain.
That would be interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
Are they meant to have deleted or gotten off them or said age verification? They've worked out how to get around their age verification, or all right, I'd like to keep an eye on that, see how we continue to absorb
focus group research.
Yeah, continue to absorb the shocks of such changes. Okay, so I spoke about the fact that I was using Proclaim, the app, which is what we use for our slides. I've just been trying to tidy up my slides and stuff for the sermon that I am preaching this weekend. This happened a few months ago. We talked about, on the same weekend we were preaching from 1 Peter, same passage. This time we were preaching from John 15:18 to chapter 16, verse 4. Yep. That's kind of how it's been broken up for us.
4A.
4A, thank you. It is 4A. It doesn't end in the middle, doesn't
it? Yeah, it does. Yeah.
The question I've got for you first is, and I may have asked you this question when we talked about 1 Peter, is what is your preparation process and what do you use when you're up the front? as your notes and things like that?
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So a preparation process is I start by going to Bible.com, copying the text, pasting that into a new Pages document, which I've set up to automatically have incredibly large margins.
Got a template.
A
Nice.
template, yep. So wide margins, I think they're like 3 or 4 centimetre margins, and double space text, and then print that off.
I like that.
And what that then gives me is lots of white space to then write all over it. So I'll try and read through the passage a couple of times without any helps, try to notice things, repeated words.
Let the word speak to you.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, I want to start with the text and see what, and just pray through that process that God will be revealing to me what is most helpful. What is true from the passage. What I think, in this case, John is actually wanting us to know. Yeah, that's really key. And then that I'll be able to apply it well to our particular congregation. So read through that a number of times, try to make some notes, see if there's a particular flow, see if there's an obvious big idea that is coming out and some supporting ideas. So anyone who's done LIT will be familiar with this process. Is exactly what we teach our teenagers to do at LIT camp. Think about what the application is then, think about what the application is now. That's the LIT framework. So that is really familiar to me, and I do that. And then once I've read through a couple of times and tried to notice those things, then I will turn to some commentaries. It depends on the passage. It depends on my week, how much time I have, but I'll try to get to at least 2 commentaries, sometimes more, depending if I've got a bit more prep time that week, and just read what they have to say. Usually because of when I was at Bible college, I did spend a fair bit of money buying commentaries on the subjects that we were studying. So for John is a good example. I did a whole subject on John. So I probably have 5 or 6 commentaries at home for John. So that was a really easy one to pull books off my shelf. One that was more technical, one that's more pastoral, one that's really quick and punchy. And read through those and see what they say, see what threads they pull. They will notice things that I haven't noticed. They will point out connections that I haven't made yet. And all of this, I'm just writing down things all over that piece of paper that I printed out. So circling words and drawing connections and pull outs and all those kinds of bits and pieces. So there's that process. And then it's where I got to this morning, which was now that I've done all of that, what's the actual flow of the sermon going to be? And fairly stereotypical, probably a 3-point sermon with an intro and a conclusion. It works well for my mind, creatively, I think, in that kind of structure. And it usually works out that, again, the big idea with supporting ideas kind of often flows into that sort of setting. I won't force 3 points. If there's only 2, that's okay. If there's 4 important points, I'll do 4. But 3 seems to work most of the time. And then think of some sort of story element that comes out. Try and connect with the big idea to intro, maybe some illustrations or stories through the middle. And then the key part for me, and because of the bit that doesn't come as naturally, is, so what is that take home going to be? Like, what's the application point? Because what I want to make sure is I haven't just explained the passage. I don't want people to get to the end of the sermon and go, oh, I understand these 4 paragraphs from John. I want them to walk out the door going, I know how to be a disciple of Jesus this week because of the 4 paragraphs that John wrote 2,000 years ago. And the gap between those 2 things is something I have to work hard at. And then I've had to learn that a preacher's role is not to explain what's going on in the passage. The preacher's role is to explain what's going on in the passage so that we today can live in 2026 as disciples of Jesus. That's the preaching role. And I don't know if this is a technical definition that's shared with others, but for me, that's the difference between teaching and preaching. So teaching, you can do at Bible college. You can sort of unpack the text and understand the Greek and do the exegesis. But the preaching mode for me is where I've got and therefore, so what? As a suburbanite in Kirrawee in 2026, this is what it may look like for you. And so try and build that out. So that's my preparation, and then I usually build some slides. I think in slides, so I find it helpful to build a PowerPoint. Other people have told me they find it helpful that there's a PowerPoint, so that's good. It's more than just me that's benefiting. But yeah, and then what will I go up with? Usually I've got printed out my PowerPoint file with the notes that I've written underneath.
Really? Okay.
So that's kind of what I will stand up with then, is my printout of the slides and the notes that I've written.
And so there's a fair bit of, not ad lib, but there's a fair bit of, you give yourself a little bit of space to make connections between things in different ways, if you were perhaps doing it twice, when you're actually up the front from your notes?
No, I've often got a fairly word for word sermon written out by then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But sometimes the slides come first, because again, I think I kind of, it helps me to order the story that I want to tell. And I'll put the slides all in place. Kind of like, I guess, people who make movies, not a lot of them made a movie, but the idea of storyboarding.
Oh, yeah.
And then you can fill in the details. So the work on the text has helped me to understand it. I've then scaffolded out my intro, 3 points, conclusion. Not full text. I've just kind of worked out what they are and references and add a bit of detail. So then I kind of basically storyboard the sermon, and then go back in and write in the notes field of that PowerPoint presentation the actual words that I'll say. So then when I hit print, it comes out with my full sermon, but attached, each 2 or 3 paragraphs is attached to the slide that is for that point.
Okay. So, because the reason I ask is that because this is only the 3rd time that I've preached a sermon, and you could say it's the 4th, 5th, and 6th, because I'm doing it 3 times this weekend. And I've done it other times. I only did it once the first time, and then did two actual times of preaching the time before that. But the reason I ask is because I've never really had any kind of training at all, and so I'm kind of muddling my way through it. But the thing that I've found with all of the times that I've had it is that I've kind of wrestled with it and continued to write stuff out, and then I'm like, delete that, like change the order, etc., because I'm someone that operates on trying to find patterns. I think pattern recognition is something that's, important to me, or just how I operate. But also the fact that I'm always trying to find the direct thread from the beginning to the end.
Right. Yep.
And it's kind of similar to you, like talking about the difference between preaching and teaching, is that I want someone to go. My intention is someone to go away with like, I understand why that, like, they were highlighting that point, because they're all connected. And now I can leave going, I knew where that was going. And I think I had I've struggled a bit with that, with this one in particular, kind of similar to what you're saying. Like there's an implication of like, what does this mean for us now? But then how, and then our application of like, how are we to go out and live this week, like you were saying. And it took me a long time, and it took me to realize, there's actually, Jesus says something similar in verse 20 and also in verses 1 to 4. But I had this problem when the first ever one I preached with John, was that I was explaining the text, like you said, until I realized, no, they're saying the same thing. They both can come down into the application. And now I can use, so I've kind of got 3 points and then an implication and application kind of thing.
Yep.
But it took me a long time to just reorder the use of those verses in the actual preaching. I don't think I'm changing God's word, but that was the problem that I had, and it took me a long time to figure it out. And the funny thing is, it's happened in the week leading up to it. It's happened on the Wednesday or Thursday of me actually doing the sermon, is that I've had to go, I'm just, like, that's where a lot of my anxiety comes from, is like, is this going to be actually any good? Am I actually going to do a good job of this? And then that falls into place. I'm like, now I'll be okay. Like, and it takes me a while to get. Maybe that's the thing. Of like, if you've been doing it for a long time, do you think that like kind of penny drops at some point for you, or do you have times when it doesn't happen?
Well, yeah. I mean, actually, the last sermon I didn't feel as prepared. I didn't give it the time it needed, and I preached it and thought, that wasn't very good. And as is always the case, there are a couple of people who
Well, you know.
No, the opposite. There are a couple of people who are like, that's, best sermon you ever preached. Thank you. It spoke to me deeply.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
And I'm just like, praise Jesus, because it was clearly the Holy.
He was there.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and I think for someone who public speaking and organising thoughts and communicating thoughts is part of the natural gifting that God has given me that I'm trying to create for His glory.
Yep.
There is a temptation there of going, well, of course it was a good sermon. I put a lot of effort into that. So I think God is lovely at humbling me when I feel like I've muffed it, and people go, thank you, that was really helpful. Like I really feel encouraged by that. And I'm just like, yeah, thanks God. That was good actually. It's good that
your word is good.
Your word is good, and you spoke through me, and these people heard exactly what they needed to hear. And I know that it wasn't because of my amazing preparation. And so, so that was good. It was funny though, I did talk to one person who said their feedback from someone else was, so-and-so said to me, it's interesting, Tim usually preaches good sermons, like great sermons.
It's only good this time.
And it was only good. And I laughed and I said, oh, thanks, I'm glad someone noticed it. So there are definitely times. What it helps me to do is just to keep coming back and asking God, please just help me to speak your truth. I do think that communication is organising thoughts, communicating thoughts, visually presenting them. That is within the natural skill set that God has given me. And if I wasn't a Christian, or I was, in corporate world, I could probably do that to the same certain level. What the thing I need to be really aware of is that I don't let natural giftedness or abilities actually block me from communing with God. And I'm listening to a book at the moment by Kyle Strobel called When God Seems Distant. And there's some really great chapters there on spiritual formation. But he's in these couple of chapters where he says sometimes we can use serving God to avoid God. Sometimes we can use spiritual disciplines to avoid God. And I think this is kind of in that world of sometimes it's similar to what we talked about with Sky Jatani's sometimes I can work for God and not with God. And it's something that I need to keep coming back to, and I need to keep being humbled by the Spirit and by others to say, no, I really need God to be the one that's working here and to be subservient to Him in all of this, and for His work to be the one. And there are lovely times, again, when the Spirit just, I was going to say plays practical jokes, but there's times when I think, God is laughing in a really gentle way of going. So there was one time when I prepared all the slideshows, I put it up into Proclaim, and then I didn't know, but whoever had launched the Proclaim for that day had launched the wrong file. So I got up to preach and my sermon slides weren't there.
Oh, no.
And I was like, okay, let's preach without and so those kind of things just kind of, I think it's just a nice little humbling thing of God's word will go out. And we need to be diligent in our preparation. We need to be prayerful in our preparation. It is right to put time and effort into crafting good, clear, concise words. It is good to create structures of thought. There are things we can learn about how humans communicate with each other, mental hooks that people can drop things onto, stories which help enliven a passage and make it from just information to transformation. Like there's lots of different things that we can do as communicators to improve the communication skill, and the struggle, the temptation, the challenge is always going to be how do I also serve Jesus and submit all of this to his lordship, knowing that he will do what he wants. And sometimes the most well-prepared sermons will just go down like a lead balloon, and sometimes really ordinary ones will speak to people because God's Spirit will do what he will. And other times it'll be, the fruit that you reap will be in proportion to the preparation you've put in, and sometimes it doesn't because God's dynamic and there are lots of people in the congregation. So I think there's lots going on there, but it is helpful to keep preparing with God and having him as part of that preparation process.
Well, just to echo your point, there was a time where I said I was feeling quite anxious this week. I just don't know where, I haven't got it locked in. And at some point, I think I was walking back to my work from the gym and I prayed, and then 5 minutes later, that's when you move the verses down to this bit, and then you've got this. I'm like, oh, there we go. Now we've got it. The thing that I wanted to ask you though, what do you think is going to be your main point that you're going to try and drive home from your sermon this weekend?
Yeah, great. Well, we haven't actually talked about the passage at all, really. So the passage is for
Talks
those
about hate.
Yeah, so for those who didn't immediately flick open their Bibles as they were listening to the podcast.
While they were driving.
As well, they were driving. So it's the back half of John 15. So it is the world will hate the disciples is often the heading that's kind of at the top. The big idea that I quite liked, I got this from Paul Barnett's commentary. I think it was Paul Barnett's commentary, is the vine grows in a tough environment. That's not quite right. It wasn't tough, but and I think that's because what he does is he connects that first half 15, growing the vine, with the second half, so abiding in Jesus will sometimes bring rejection.
Yep.
And that's okay. And I think the emotional application, particularly in the immediate context, so the application then for the disciples is don't fear. Jesus is still on his throne. Even being kicked out of the synagogues, even being rejected by your peers, even the possibility of being killed, all of which we see play out in the first chapters of Acts, are not to surprise the disciples. It's okay. I've told you beforehand. This is all going to be, this is part of the larger plan. It's okay. You are still safe. Keep abiding in me. So I think I'll probably go back to the vine passage from last week and say the point here is abide in Jesus, abide in Jesus, abide in Jesus. That will sometime, because we abide in Jesus in a world that does not, we will stand out.
Yeah.
And that may bring hostilities. And they will be contextually contingent. I'm thinking about drawing in maybe some stories from Voice of the Martyrs or Open Doors, or ones where people are in countries where they are at risk of being kicked out of communities or killed because of Jesus. Obviously in the West, and we've talked about this before, being kicked out of your communities or killed, very unlikely to be the types of persecutions we face. So we have to do some sort of interpretation there of, okay, well, what might be experienced by us? But the key is to abide, and don't be surprised that when you abide, you are in conflict with the rest of the world, because you look different, you smell different, you taste different, you are different, and the world doesn't like difference. And so that was not a big idea because that was more than 10 words, but somewhere in there is our punchy.
So I had a slightly different take on it, only because when my feeling was that we could be tempted to read that passage and just go, oh, we'll be hated, and look at us, poor Christians. It's so hard for us. And I wanted to kind of push against that a little bit in terms of saying it was, in a sense, a positive thing that we stand out. And I kind of start with, from the beginning of John, we talk about how the Word was with God from the very beginning. So Jesus was with God from the very beginning. And it says in verse 5 of chapter 1, Jesus is the light. I'm paraphrasing, but Jesus is the light and the darkness has not overcome it. And so as a result, Jesus is divisive. and everyone responds to that in a different way. But he's divisive because he says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me.
Yep.
So that is a bluntly divisive thing to say.
Yeah. Yep.
And then as a result, it's easy to read that and go like hate, but the way that we often use hate in our society is I hate that guy, or I hate that. It's more just like an emotional thing. Like I can't stand this thing. I hate this. One of the illustrations I use is that we've got a lot of moths in our house at the moment, and at some point I'm like, oh, these stupid moths, I hate them, kind of thing. But that's very surface level. Whereas what I think Jesus is talking about is he exposes for our sin, and the hate that comes with that is the exposing the infinitely deeper need of needing first of all the separation from God, but then also the need for a savior to resolve that.
Yep.
And then therefore, and then the Spirit, he's given us the Spirit in order to convict us, but also convict others and expose the truth of what we need. And it's talking about the abiding thing as well. I kind of get to the abiding thing a little bit later to a degree, but it's about allow the Spirit to do the heavy lifting. You just need to abide in Jesus to produce the fruit that glorifies God. Yeah. And therefore, yes, we're going to be persecuted. If we're exposing the sin that is in the world, there are people that are going to respond in a way that we don't like. Yep. However, I got this from you actually, as we were talking about it earlier this morning, is that it's not our job to expose people by calling it out or showing them. That's the Spirit's job. It's for us to show it through fruits of the Spirit with love, tolerance, care, serving, and therefore people will see, oh, there's something different here. And you said, what did you say? Like, let me get this right. We don't create a situation where people hate Jesus because of you. Like, allow people to hate you because of Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, I was struck by the order. So Jesus says, a servant is not greater than his master. Mm-hmm. So because they hate me, they will hate you as a subsequent. So what would be the reverse of that? Well, I think we see this through church history. There are times when Christians have not lived according to the Spirit, or those who have claimed Christ have done very un-Christ-like things in the name of Jesus or in the name of the church. You've got celebrity pastor scandals, you've got sex abuse, you've got violence and crusades, you've got all sorts of things that we can point to. The Christians have done badly and not lived according to the kingdom ethic. And there are times when people have looked at those who claim the name of Christ and said, I hate what you're doing, and so therefore I will hate your Jesus. Or I reject you, and therefore I will reject your Jesus. Yes. And I just thought that reversal of what it should be is in, rather than those who are living according to the kingdom ethic are seeing what Jesus is truly like when we live according to the fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. When we live according to that, and that exposes the darkness of others, and they like the cockroach run away from that rather than the moth who draws towards that, then we're not chasing them for clicks. We're not trying to antagonize. We're just shining. We're being the shining light on the hill. We're being the salt of the earth, and in doing so, they hate the kingdom that we are presenting. They hate the king that it is presenting, and therefore they hate us. And so I just thought that was an interesting dynamic to make sure the order is right, that they hate us because they hate Jesus, not they hate Jesus because they hate us because we're being jerks.
Being hypocritical, going around and exposing their sin but not saying, oh, I'm just as sinful. Yeah, I think that's a really important point to make in the application. So that's going to be fun. Yeah. You looking forward to it?
I am.
Okay, that's good. I'm looking forward to now that I've figured out the order.
Right. And if you're listening to this, that means that Joel has already preached, and it is also up on YouTube.
It will be online, yeah.
And on the podcast. So you can listen to Joel's sermon and let him know what you think in the comments below.
Oh, gosh. Yes. Before we finish, yes, you can do that. Is that your takeaway?
That's my takeaway. Listen to Joel's sermon, because I'm sure it'll be a cracker. And comment below.
That's your takeaway?
That's my takeaway.
All right. Thanks for the takeaway. We have had people join the Shock Absorber Network, which is unreal.
We have.
Express their interest. Thank you to everyone. If you are interested in joining the Shock Absorber Network, you can go to shockabsorber.com.au, or if you have any questions about it, you can email me. But it really is just filling out a form and just saying join in the mailing list, so we can let you know what's happening at a particular time for the Shock Absorber Network. It's really just a moment to get together as different churches, different church leaders, to talk about anything related to ministry, how we can do it better, how we can do church, as we say, a tiny little bit differently, so we continue to glorify God, as we were talking about just with our sermon prep. So thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Joel.
Hope you've had a good time.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it?
Very much so.
Good, very good. Thank you for being on here. Thank you. I hope you also enjoyed it. If you're listening or watching us, we really appreciate it. You can email me if you have any questions, joel@shockabsorber.com.au. And with that, we'll leave us with a one way.
One way.
One way.